Assalamu alaikum, dear students. The topic of today's discussion is analyzing the audience. There is a famous quotation by someone who said, "Speakers do not give speeches to audience; they jointly create meaning with audience." The success of your speech rests in large part on how your audience receives and understands it. That does not mean you just start speaking in front of an audience when they are not understanding anything what you are communicating to them. So you must think that how your audience or the receiver of communication is involved in the process of communication. And for that reason, public speaking or any communication is an audience centered activity, that how much your audience is understanding what you are communicating. The audience analysis is the best way to reduce the risk of such situations, and is to conduct an audience analysis as you prepare your speech or your message that you want to communicate to someone. So this is why the audience is very important, and your receiver who will receive your communication message, the message you communicate, is really important. There are certain things that you should analyze, like the environment where you are standing and the needs, like what needs your participant of your communication processes do have, why they are there, that you want to add up, that you want to communicate them. So you must have an analysis of the needs of your audience, or you can say the expectations, that what they want to learn from you, which type of message they want to be communicated to them. If you consider all these things, the needs and expectations of your audience, and many other aspects that we are going to discuss in this lecture, then your communication will be much more effective. You will achieve the goals of your communication. Your purpose of communication will be fulfilled. Let's move ahead. So, why analysis of audience is important? It creates a positive response in your audience. If you consider your audience, their age group, their interest level, their knowledge level, and you talk accordingly, then it will create a positive response in your audience. It is also a warning against, you can say, wrong communication. You might not be misled what you have to communicate about that. There is a famous phrase that says, always consider your audience. Think well and consider who is the person, who is the receiver of your message of communication, to whom you are talking, who is there in front of you that will receive your message of communication. What are the chief things that you should analyze in your audience? The first one is age group. So if you are talking like at a higher secondary level, or you are teaching at a higher education department, or when you are talking to someone who is highly educated and at a higher age, and there is a kid who wants to communicate, or there is a child or a boy or a student, so he must consider the age of the person to whom he wants to communicate. Similarly, when there is a book written for school children, you will find the vocabulary easy one. You will find a very short range of vocabulary items that will be used in those books, because those books are communicating something to kids or children. But books written for university students have a different vocabulary choices and grammatical structures, because the audience of those books is different. They belong to different age group. So when you are communicating, you should consider the age of your audience, the receivers of your communication. Gender is also important to be analyzed from your audience. If you are talking against feminism and you are putting the remarks against feminism, and you have women in your audience, obviously they will feel annoyed. They will not be persuaded by your message, most probably. So gender is also important, and when you are criticizing something about like the male students do not put much focus on their studies, but in your audience the majority consists of the boys. So hopefully they will reject the message that you want to communicate. You will lose the worth and effectiveness of your communication. So all that you are going to communicate, you must consider that people belonging to which gender are there in front of you that you want to communicate with. We should also consider and analyze that what expertise level they have. For example, the person who is very good at computer skills, his major areas of interest are IT. He is an IT professional and you are communicating with that person. So if you add examples at your public speaking or in your communication from his fields of expertise and his level of expertise, hopefully they will appreciate. You will get a good response from your audience. And also think the level of expertise that they have. If you are talking that something goes beyond their heads, they do not catch any idea or anything that you are communicating because that does not meet their expertise level. It's something beyond them. So you will not have an effective communication. We should also consider the interest of our audience, that in which areas or subjects they are interested most. Then we should also analyze the need of the audience. If you are sharing and communicating something that is not needed by your audience, your effective will not be much effective in that way, and you will lose much of the content that you wanted to communicate. So you will not get a good or positive response in your communication. So also consider and analyze the needs of your audience. Then what are their expectations? So if you are a teacher and you have students who are just expecting few notes and short descriptions, they want to study just few topics, they are not much interested in that, they are expecting less, and you are giving a bombastic lecture there, you are adding too much notes, too much things to them, hopefully it would be hard for them to absorb and digest all that you are communicating to them. So you must analyze their expectations, what the person is expecting from you. If you add too much information in your communication and your message is overloaded, hopefully it will lose its effectiveness. Then the value system of the audience you must examine. So if you are criticizing a prophet or you are criticizing the national heroes of a country whose people are there in front of you as an audience, so you will lose the credibility of your communication because you are communicating against the value systems of those audience. So you must consider their value system as well. Then the attitude. What is the attitude of your audience toward that message which you want to communicate? And also obviously their socio-religious beliefs are also important. What are their core beliefs? So if you talk something, you will create an outburst and you will have to face a reaction from the audience if you communicate something that goes against the basic fundamental beliefs of your audience. So when you are communicating, you must consider all these aspects and do well analyze these things. And also we must consider the knowledge or familiarity with the topic. Now the person with whom you are talking, if you use too much technical vocabulary of law with an ordinary person and you are telling him that this is auction and this is the attorney and other vocabulary you use from law department, or you use the technical medical vocabulary with an ordinary person who is your patient, he will not get message much effectively because he does not know about the digestive system and blood circulatory system and nervous system. So if you are teaching him and telling him and explaining him his disease, a patient who is sitting in front of you and you are a doctor or a physician, hopefully he will not understand well. So you must consider and analyze the knowledge of your receiver and his prior familiarity with the topic, how much he knows. Cultural and geographical backgrounds are also important when you are analyzing the audience. Different cultures have different codes of their beliefs, of their customs, of their understanding, of their awareness about the many life issues. So if you are talking to a person from Africa and you are speaking like Joseph Conrad in Heart of Darkness, putting harsh remarks, hopefully he will feel hurt. He will not put much attention to what you say. You will lose your credibility in that communication. So you must consider the geographical backgrounds, because when we have people from different countries, we have people from different cities and provinces of our country, we have people from different cultural backgrounds, like in KPK in Gilgit Baltistan we have certain cultural barriers are also there. So we must consider their cultural and geographical background, so to which area, which geographical locale that they belong to. Then socio-religious issues should also be analyzed for a good and effective communication, because in many religions to talk against the prophets is considered as blasphemy, and they give really a very strict or harsh reaction against that. If you talk against the God, the concept of God in a certain religion, or you're talking about against their sacred personalities like prophets, like priests and monks and friars and like that. There can be also the political theories and ideas of your audience, that you should be sensitive about that and you should analyze that. So these are some things. There can also be other things, depends on the context and situation where you are communicating. So if you put your audience at the center of your communication and think well, not just whatever goes in your mind, you just start communicating, and the people around you, they just get bored and exhausted, they are not getting much, because you are not fulfilling their needs. Like a person is too worried and he wants you to share his griefs, and he wants you to sympathize him, and you start communicating your own worries and disturbances and griefs and problems. Hopefully the receiver of your communication will feel exhausted, because you are not considering his needs at that time when you are communicating with him or her. So this is a very interesting topic or phenomena that you can read more about. There are wonderful books about that topic that you should read about the analysis of your audience when to make your communication a bit more effective. Hopefully this lecture will be much fruitful for you. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Take care.